The rain poured endlessly, turning the quiet country road into a silver ribbon under the headlights of Anna's old car. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, the wipers working as fast as they could. In the back seat, her two daughters, Lily, 9, and Grace, 6, were fast asleep, their small heads leaning against each other. Anna glanced at them in the rearview mirror. Her heart softened at the sight, but it also ached. Life had been nothing but a storm since her husband died in a construction accident 3 years ago. She was left with nothing but debts, grief, and 2 little girls who needed her to be strong. Every day felt like a race she was losing, working 2 jobs, coming home late, packing school lunches at midnight, then getting up at dawn to start. Again, she was tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. The road ahead was empty, and Anna's mind drifted. She thought about the unpaid electricity bill, about the growing hole in Lily's shoes, and about how Grace's birthday was next month, but she had no idea how to make it special. The sound of rain was like a lullaby for her thoughts, until she saw something up ahead. Her eyes narrowed. Just beyond the bend, faint red taillights glowed in the darkness. She slowed down. As her headlights reached the spot, her breath caught in her throat. A car was smashed into the guardrail, its hood crumpled, steam or smoke rising from underneath. She had seconds to decide. It was late. The rain was heavy. Her girls were in the back. She could drive on and call for help from home, but something in her heart refused. She couldn't just leave a person out there alone in the cold and dark. She pulled over, the tires splashing in the water. Her daughter stirred in the back seat. "Stay here, okay?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Don't open the doors, for anyone but me." The rain drenched her instantly as she ran toward the wreck. The driver's door was jammed, but through the glass she saw a man slumped over the wheel. His head rested against the airbag, blood trickling from his forehead. "Sir, can you hear me?" she called, pounding on the glass. His eyelids fluttered. A weak groan escaped his lips. Anna tried the passenger door. It opened with a loud creak. She climbed in, ignoring the smell of gasoline that made her stomach twist. Her hand shook as she unbuckled his seatbelt. He was heavy, and every muscle in her arms burned as she tried to move him. "Come on, you're going to be okay," she muttered, more to herself than to him. Finally, with all her strength, she pulled him free. His legs dragged against the wet road as she half carried, half dragged him toward a tree, a few meters away from the smoking engine. She laid him down gently and pulled off her jacket, placing it over his chest. He was barely conscious, his breathing shallow, but he was alive. Anna's heart pounded. She pulled her phone from her pocket and dialed emergency services, her voice shaking as she explained the location. When she hung up, she knelt beside him, rain running down her face. For a moment, she felt the weight of the world pressing harder than ever. She was already fighting her own battles. She didn't have space for anyone else's. But looking at the man lying helpless in the mud, she knew she'd made the right choice. She couldn't explain why, but something told her this night would matter. The sound of sirens grew in the distance. Anna didn't know his name. She didn't know his story, and she didn't know that the simple decision to stop her car in the rain would begin a chain of events that would change both of their lives forever. 2 days passed since that stormy night. Anna had gone back to her routine, rushing between her 2 jobs, making sure her girls had their homework done, cooking quick dinners before falling asleep at the kitchen table. The memory of the accident still lingered. She didn't know if the man had survived, though the paramedics had told her he was stable. She had left the scene before anyone asked too many questions. After all, she wasn't used to being noticed. On the 3rd afternoon, she was folding laundry when a knock came at the door. She frowned. Hardly anyone visited her, and no one came unannounced. She wiped her hands on her apron and opened the door. A tall man in a black suit stood there, holding a bouquet of fresh flowers and a large basket filled with groceries. Behind him stood another man, the one from the crash, Anna's breath caught. He looked different now. Clean clothes, hair neatly combed, a bandage over his forehead. He wasn't pale and broken anymore, but his eyes still held a kind of quiet tiredness. "Hello, Anna," the man in the bandage said softly. His voice was warm, deep, but gentle. "I'm Daniel Cross. You saved my life." Anna blinked. How do you know my name?" He gave a small smile. "The paramedics took your details. I wanted to thank you in person." The man in the suit stepped forward, placing the basket and flowers into her hands. "From Mr. Cross." His way of saying thank you. Anna looked down at the groceries, bread, milk, fruit, even treats she hadn't been able to buy for months. "You didn't have to do this," she said quietly, almost embarrassed. "I did," Daniel replied. "Not everyone would have stopped that night. You risked yourself to help a stranger. You didn't even wait for praise or attention. That's rare." Her 2 daughters appeared behind her, peeking curiously from the doorway. Lily whispered, "Mom, is that the man you helped?" Daniel knelt slightly, to be at their eye level. "Yes, and I'm very glad your mom was there. She's my hero." Grace giggled softly and hid behind her sister. Anna's heart squeezed at the sight. They hadn't had a visitor in a long time who spoke to her children like they mattered. "Please, come in," she said finally. Stepping aside, Daniel and the suited man entered the small, tidy home. It smelled faintly of soup simmering on the stove. Anna poured tea into mismatched mugs, feeling the awkwardness of having someone so well dressed in her worn-out kitchen. They talked for almost an hour. Daniel asked about her daughters, about the town, about her work. He didn't speak much about himself, except to mention that he had a business in the city. When it was time to leave, he stood by the door, looking at her seriously. "Anna," he said, "I know you don't want anything in return, but if there's ever a time you need help with anything, please call me. I owe you my life." She shook her head. "You don't owe me anything. I'm just glad you're all right." He smiled faintly, then handed her a small card with his number. As the door closed behind him, Anna stood for a long moment, the flowers in one hand, the card in the other. She didn't know what to think. She was used to being invisible, just another tired face in a crowd, carrying her burdens alone. But now, a stranger whose life she had touched was offering to be there for her. She didn't know if she'd ever call him. She didn't know that fate would soon make the choice for her. Over the next few weeks, Daniel began visiting now and then, never unannounced, never for long, just enough to check on Anna and the girls. Sometimes he brought groceries, sometimes fresh bread from a bakery in the city. Once, he even brought a box of crayons and sketch pads for Lily and Grace, saying every child deserved to draw their dreams. Anna didn't quite know how to feel about it. She was grateful, of course, but also cautious. Life had taught her not to expect kindness without a price. Yet, Daniel never asked for anything in return. Her daughters, however, adored him. Grace would run to the door whenever she saw his car pull up, and Lily would save her school stories just for him. Anna noticed how he listened to them, not in the distracted way most adults did, but as if their words mattered. Still, there was no ignoring the fact that they lived in different worlds. Daniel wore clothes that looked expensive without trying. His watch probably cost more than her yearly rent. His shoes were spotless, even after walking in the muddy yard. And when he talked about his work, she realized he owned a large construction company in the city. Anna, on the other hand, lived paycheck to paycheck. Her car was held together by prayers. She wore the same winter coat for years. Her evenings were spent clipping coupons and making meals stretch just a little longer. One afternoon, Daniel visited while she was making spaghetti. The sauce simmered in a dented pot, the smell filling the kitchen. "This smells amazing," Daniel said, setting a loaf of bread on the counter. "It's just spaghetti," she replied, smiling faintly, cheap and easy. He pulled off his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. Mind if I help? She laughed. I'm not sure you're used to washing dishes in a sink this small. Try me, he said, already filling the basin with warm water. As they worked side by side, Anna found herself relaxing. She told him about her daughter's school projects, about the little library in town where Grace loved to spend hours. Daniel listened, nodding, asking questions. It was strange. She didn't feel like she was speaking to a millionaire. She felt like she was speaking to a friend, but the thought lingered in the back of her mind. Why was he here? Why did a man like him keep coming back to a small house in a quiet town, to a widow with nothing to offer? When the dishes were done, Daniel leaned against the counter. Anna, he said quietly, I don't think you realize how much you've done for me. She looked up, puzzled. I pulled you out of a car, that's all. He shook his head. No. You reminded me that there are still people who help without asking for anything back. People who care. That night, you didn't just save my life. You changed how I see the world. Anna felt her cheeks warm. She wasn't used to hearing things like that. I think you're giving me too much credit, she murmured. Daniel smiled faintly. I don't think I am. As he left that evening, Anna stood at the window, watching his car disappear down the road. She didn't know what to make of his words. She had always been the one struggling, the one needing help. She had never thought she could be the one to change someone else's life. But as she closed the curtains and turned back to her girls, she felt a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling she hadn't had in years. It was the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, something good was finally making its way into their lives. A month had passed since the night of the accident. The days were slowly warming, but Anna's life was still the same. Early mornings, late nights, and an endless list of things to do. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Daniel arrived again. This time, his face carried a different expression. Not the easy smile he usually brought, but something more serious. Anna was at the kitchen table, sorting bills into two piles. The ones she could pay now, and the ones she had to pray could wait. She quickly pushed them aside when he stepped in. Everything okay? She asked. He hesitated before sitting down across from her. Anna, I've been thinking about something for weeks now. I need you to hear me out before you say no. Her heart skipped a beat. All right? You're working yourself into the ground, he began. 2 jobs, no time for yourself, barely enough for your girls. You're carrying the weight of the world, and it's not sustainable. She crossed her arms, uneasy. I've been doing it for years. I can manage. That's not the point, he said gently. You shouldn't have to just manage. You should be living. You should be with your daughters more, not racing between jobs, just to survive. Anna's chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that, as if her exhaustion wasn't just normal, as if she actually deserved better. Then Daniel took a breath, as though bracing himself. I want to offer you a job, with me. Full-time, you'd help manage my personal charity. Projects, flexible hours, work mostly from home, full benefits, and paused. It pays 3 times what you're making now. Anna stared at him, stunned. Daniel, I can't. That's too much. You don't even know if I'm qualified. I know you, he replied firmly. You're organized, smart, and you care about people. That's exactly what I need. She shook her head. It feels like pity. This isn't pity, he said, leaning forward. It's gratitude. You saved my life. You showed me kindness when you didn't have to. I want to help you the way you helped me, not just for a night, but for good. Anna looked down at her hands. The thought of quitting her exhausting jobs was tempting, but fear crept in. What if it didn't work out? What if people talked? What if she started depending on him and then he walked away? She had learned to survive alone because she had no choice. Accepting this offer felt like stepping onto a bridge that might collapse. I don't know, she whispered. Think about it, Daniel said softly. Take the weekend. No pressure, But please, don't dismiss it just because you're afraid. You deserve a life that isn't just about survival." They sat in silence for a moment. The only sound, the faint bubbling of the pot on the stove. When Daniel finally left, Anna stood at the door, watching his car disappear. Her mind was a storm. She thought about Lily's disappointed face when she missed another school play. She thought about Grace's wish for her to be home more. She thought about the nights she cried quietly so her girls wouldn't hear. 4 years. She had told herself that this was the way life was, that all she could do was keep going. But now, someone was holding out a hand, offering a different path. That night, as she tucked her daughters into bed, Lily asked, "Mom, why did Mr. Daniel come today?" Anna hesitated, then smiled faintly. "He might have given us a chance for something better." She didn't know yet if she would take it. But for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like a dark tunnel. It felt like there might be a door waiting to open. Anna took the weekend to think about Daniel's offer. She walked around the small kitchen, staring at the cracked tiles, imagining what it would be like not to rush out the door at dawn. She imagined having breakfast with her girls instead of leaving them with a neighbor. She imagined coming home before the sun went down. By Monday morning, she had made her decision. She called Daniel. "I'll take it," she said, her voice trembling. Daniel didn't hide his happiness. "You won't regret this, Anna." The first few weeks were strange. Anna worked from home most days, answering calls, sending emails, and visiting local shelters and food banks as part of Daniel's charity projects. She was nervous at first, unsure if she could handle it, but Daniel's trust gave her confidence. For the first time in years, she had evenings free. She could help Lily with her science homework, read bedtime stories to Grace, and actually sit at the dinner table without rushing. The girls noticed the difference immediately. "You're home more, Mom," Grace said one night, hugging her tightly. "I like it." But not everyone was happy for her. It started with whispers at the grocery store. Women she had known for years suddenly looked at her differently. One afternoon, while Anna compared prices on cereal, she overheard 2 women in the next aisle. "She's working for that rich man now," one of them said. Hum, I heard she's more than just his employee." The words hit her like cold water. She wanted to confront them, but she kept walking, pretending she didn't care. At home, though, the comments stayed in her mind. People had always judged her for being a young widow. Now, with Daniel in the picture, their imaginations ran wild. It wasn't just strangers. Even some old friends grew distant. They didn't understand that this job was real work, not charity. That Daniel respected her and valued what she brought to his projects. One evening, Anna was sorting files when Lily walked into the kitchen with a frown. "Mom," she asked quietly, "are people saying bad things because of Mr. Daniel?" Anna froze. "Where did you hear that?" "Some kids at school were talking. They said he's not really your boss, that you're, you know." Lily's voice trailed off, her cheeks pink with embarrassment. Anna's chest ached. She knelt down and took Lily's hands. "Sweetheart, people say things when they don't understand. Mr. Daniel is my boss and my friend. That's all. I work for him because it's a good job, and it helps me take care of you and Grace. That's the truth." Lily nodded slowly, but Anna could tell the words still weighed on her. That night, after the girls were asleep, Anna sat alone in the living room, staring at the business card Daniel had given her months ago. She thought about calling him, telling him she couldn't keep working for him because of the gossip, but then she remembered the look on Grace's face when she had new shoes for school. She remembered Lily's joy when Anna showed up at her play on time. She remembered how light her heart felt these days compared to the heavy, endless grind she had lived before. No, she couldn't give that up. Not for whispers, not for lies. The next day, when Daniel stopped by, she didn't mention the gossip. Instead, she poured him a cup of tea and asked about their next project. But deep inside, she knew something had to change. People were talking, and sooner or later, she'd have to face it, or let Daniel face it with her. The whispers didn't stop. If anything, they grew louder. At the bakery, Anna heard two women fall silent the moment she stepped inside. At the school gates, she felt eyes follow her when she picked up Lily and Grace. Even in the library, where she usually felt safe, someone muttered "gold digger" under their breath as she passed. She told herself it didn't matter. She told herself she could ignore it. But late at night, when the girls were asleep, the words echoed in her head. One Saturday morning, she was at the market when an older woman she vaguely knew stopped her. "I hear you've got a rich man looking after you now," the woman said with a tight smile. "Must be nice." Anna forced a polite nod and walked away before she said something she'd regret. Her hands shook as she loaded the groceries into the car. By the time she got home, the decision was made. She couldn't let her daughters live under this cloud of gossip. It wasn't fair to them. That evening, after the girls were in bed, Daniel came by to drop off some documents. He noticed immediately that something was wrong. "You're quiet tonight," he said gently. Anna didn't answer at first. Then she took a deep breath. "Daniel, I think I need to stop working for you." He froze. "What? Why?" "People are talking," she said, her voice breaking. "They're saying things about us. Things I don't want my girls to hear. It's not worth it. I can go back to my old jobs. We'll manage." For a long moment, Daniel just looked at her. Then he stepped closer, his expression serious. "Anna, I don't care what people say," he said quietly. "Let them talk. They don't know the truth." She shook her head. "It's not about me. It's about Lily and Grace. They're starting to hear it, and I can't let that poison touch them." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then maybe it's time I tell you something I've kept to myself." Anna blinked, unsure. "Before the crash," he began, his voice low, "I wasn't just on a random drive. I was on my way to the city to sign papers, selling my company. I had decided to walk away from everything I built. My marriage had ended, my family had cut ties, and I had convinced myself that nothing in life mattered anymore. I was done." Anna's heart pounded. "But then you pulled me out of that car," Daniel continued. "You didn't know me. You didn't ask who I was or what I could do for you. You just saved me. And in that moment, I realized maybe the world wasn't as cold as I thought. You gave me a reason to keep going. You reminded me that there are still good people out there." He stepped even closer, his voice firm now. "You didn't just save my life, Anna. You saved my will to live. And I'm not going to let a few small-minded people take away what we've built since then." Anna swallowed hard, her eyes stinging. She had never seen him like this, so open, so raw. "I never thought I was doing anything that big," she whispered. "You were," he said simply. "You still are." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Anna still didn't know how to face the gossip, but for the first time, she began to understand that what she and Daniel shared wasn't just kindness. It was survival, for both of them. And maybe, just maybe, that was worth holding on to. The morning sun spilled golden light through the small curtains in Mary's living room. The warmth touched her face as she sat on the couch, a cup of tea cradled in her hands. For the first time in years, her heart felt light, as if a heavy stone had finally been lifted. It had been weeks since Daniel's accident, and in that time, everything had changed. The house that once echoed with silence and worry was now full of laughter. Her daughters, Lily and Rose, ran barefoot across the living room floor, giggling about something silly. Daniel sat in the armchair, his legs still healing but his smile strong. He was reading them a story from one of the old books he had bought them. Mary watched quietly, a soft smile forming. She couldn't believe this was her life now, not because of the luxury or comfort Daniel brought, but because of the peace. The fear that had lived in her since her husband's death was finally fading. Daniel looked up from the book, and caught her gaze. "Why are you standing there?" he asked with a grin. "Come join us." She walked over and sat beside him. The smell of freshly brewed tea mixed with the faint scent of Daniel's cologne. He placed a hand gently over hers. "You saved me," he said softly, "but you didn't just save my life. You gave me something I never had, a family." Mary's eyes warmed with tears. "And you gave us hope again," she whispered. Later that day, Daniel called them all outside. Parked in the driveway was a shiny, second-hand SUV. It wasn't new, but it looked almost perfect. "For you," he said, tossing her the keys. Mary's mouth fell open. "Daniel, I can't." "You can," he interrupted with a smile. "You shouldn't have to walk miles in the rain or worry about how to get your girls to school. You've carried too much on your own for too long. Let me help." Her hands trembled as she took the keys. She wanted to say more, but words failed. Instead, she hugged him tightly, her cheek resting against his shoulder. In the weeks that followed, Daniel became more than just the man she had rescued. He became a friend, a protector, and in time, something even deeper. But for now, they didn't rush it. They shared dinners, late-night talks, and small moments that made life sweeter. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Daniel turned to her. "You know, Mary, when I woke up that day in the hospital, I thought I had lost everything. But it turns out, I had just found the most important thing in my life." Mary looked at him, the glow of the fading sun reflecting in her eyes. "Sometimes," she said softly, "you have to be broken to be found." The wind rustled the trees, carrying the sound of the girls laughing inside. And in that moment, Mary knew life had not ended the day she became a widow. It had simply been waiting for the right person to walk into it.